Welcome to the Coaching Podcast with your hosts Emma Doyle and Simon Blair, coach for success in sport and business.
G'day everybody and welcome to the Coaching Podcast. My name's Emma Doyle and I'm here with Darryl Lewis, fellow Aussie, even though his accent's a little bit more Americanized than mine. He's been here longer. Yes, he has. Thank you so much for being on the show, Darryl. Woo!
Glad to be here. Thank you.
So the first question is the Vegemite question.
Yes.
Now, I'm curious because you have been in America so long. You either love it or you strongly dislike it. What's your take on Vegemite?
I have 2 jars upstairs right this second that I just got specially imported from Oz.
Even though you are a Bombers Essendon supporter in AFL football, I love that you love Vegemite. So because you answered that way, the follow-up question on the Coaching Podcast is, can you share with us one of your best coaching moments and what were the lessons, something that went really, really well?
I think it's really a generic answer, to be honest, because my answer to people who ask, who do I like to teach is always anybody that wants to learn. And so, my coaching moments probably come from every student that gets that aha moment, which isn't every day. It's probably not every week. It's you work with somebody for a little while and then you just see the light bulb go off, and they own that thing. My line is always, you lease a shot for 3 months or 4 months before you own it. And I like to get people to that 4 month where they just feel like it's theirs and they hit it. So that's kind of, it's not necessarily one specific moment. But
yeah, the aha moment. And what about on the flip side? The flip side, of course, is your worst coaching moment.
Yeah, it's usually coming from, somebody that's having a tough day, and it's not usually because of us or me. It's usually something that's outside. And to me, it becomes a tough moment because I can't turn them around. And I feel like, I'm relatively good at taking somebody who's a little down and making them happy because that's the way I coach. And so it's disappointing to me if I can't fix whatever's going on, or at least fix the way they feel about whatever's going on. So that's a bit of a challenge, that and the screaming kid that's dragged to the courts who has no business being there. That's a tough one too.
It is. And I think being able to recognize those cues, isn't it? It's being able to read beyond the surface structure of, how are you today? Fine. Well, are you really fine?
Well, and being a typical Aussie, I tend to be very sarcastic. And I think knowing when to turn that on and when to turn it off, I think is a skill.
It is.
So, once or twice I've gotten it wrong. And very quickly when you've just made a mistake, but then you just have to work through it.
Yeah. And I'm always telling my young coaches, just own it too. When you do make a mistake, it's great just to own it as quick as you can. The next question, Darryl, is the sliding doors question.
I don't know that there is one. I'm a big believer in if you plan correctly, you can wing it. And so, if you just try to wing it and, talking about young coaches, frequently you see them try to wing it. But if you don't know the direction you're going first, when that door comes about, you're not ready for it and you can't change. From my career, I wanted to be a resort pro. I thought that was where my end goal was. I took a job that was a resort job, didn't work out, not a resort pro. I'm a club pro. And so, that's the biggest turnaround I think I had in my career. That was almost a battleship moment. It took a long time to turn around, but I think that's just being ready for anything that comes is really the answer to that one.
Yeah. And what age were you when you came to the States?
I was 19. So I came here thinking I was going to be here for 12 months, play some tennis, see how good I could get. 37 years later, 2 kids, 3 kids, and then 3 grandbabies later, here I am. So
fantastic. In 1 to a maximum of 3 words, what do you think makes a great coach?
Well, I have to go based on my previous answer of flexibility, consistency, and caring.
flexibility, consistency, and caring. And you demonstrate all of those. I've seen you on court. I love it when we demonstrate, not just we practice what we preach. Hey, absolutely. And finally, Darryl, our last question is where we ask you to ask us a question. So what's that one question that always sparks your curiosity? What do you want to know more about?
I want to know more about where the industry is going, whether it is more in the business direction. Are we more focused on going towards a PGA Tour kind of concept where all the club managers know who all the pros are and they hire certified pros? Or are we going more towards I've got a basket of balls and I know how to teach and here's a court and let's go? Being involved in both organizations and the USTA, who knows where it's going to go? But that's, I think, the biggest question in my mind right now, because it makes a difference to the older pros like myself and the young ones that we're all trying to get involved into the industry.
Fantastic. Well, that concludes the formal part of the coaching podcast. Do you mind if I go rogue and ask you just a couple more curious questions?
You never know what answer you'll get. But sure.
I know. That's the beauty of the podcast. We never know. Right. Back to having a vision. What about you as a young coaching pro? You said, that you had that vision that you wanted to be a resort pro, but how did that come about? Have you always been someone who plans, who knows where they want to go, or have you had mentors along the way? Or talk me through that process for you.
No, and I guess I won't say embarrassing, but I didn't plan anything out. I never planned on being a tennis pro. I fell into being a tennis pro. I fell into being a tennis director. The tennis director where I worked ended up, getting cancer and getting hospitalized. And so he's fine, but he said, okay, it's your show. I can't do it. And I was, still in college. And so that was my walk into being a tennis director. But no, I thought being a pro at the beach, at a resort at the beach would be a great place to be. All the bad members go away. All the lessons that you don't like, they go away once the weekend's over. The part I didn't realize was that all the good ones leave too. And so, and I think I've been asked to write some articles on the fact that I think I've done just about everything in the industry. I started as a park and rec pro. I worked for the USTA. I've run tournaments. I've been a resort pro. I've been a corporate club pro, and now I'm at a member-owned club. But it's all really it's been, if you believe in dumb luck, part of me kind of says you make your own luck. But I think, I've definitely fallen into the right places, probably because of the people I try to associate with, makes your connections and, opens you up to different things. So, I'd love to say, as an 18-year-old, I drew up, all the steps in my career, but no, that didn't work that way.
Well, thank you for your honesty, because I was like, wow, how do you know which door to jump on through? Especially, I'm similar to you in the fact that I love so many areas of the game and of coaching that sometimes it's hard to pick a lane when you do love all the different areas as well. Talk to me about leadership. I know you've held a number of leadership roles. What do you think makes a great leader?
Go back to one of my 3 words, and that's consistency. A good leader, does the same thing. The people they're trying to lead know where we're going, and you build respect. You certainly, nobody ever gets respect. You have to earn it, and so you have to. I like to be the guy that's out there sweeping the courts and emptying the trash, and all that kind of thing, and then people don't feel so bad about doing it themselves. I've had a couple of bosses who sit in their office and, hey, go do this, go do that. And that's not a leader, but you have to be willing to do everything, and you have to be willing to do the same thing every day. So
how do you balance the hours, the hard work? It's not an easy job being a tennis pro or tennis director. And so how, obviously family is important to you as well. How do you balance that?
You get your wife to become a certified tennis pro. That's a great thing. You hire your son to work with you. That's always a good thing too, which is actually my current situation. But no, I mean, you're right. Fortunately, my wife is great about knowing that, I'm going to work as hard as I need to work, and then I'm going to play as hard as I need to play when the time comes. And, I had a stretch where I worked 43 days in a row, and I've had other stretches where I've gone in, for 2 hours a day. And you just have to know when it's okay. You have to be at the club when you need to be at the club, and you go away when you don't need to be there. And obviously, you've got to have a tennis committee, in my case, and a GM that supports you doing that. So, I own a fairly sizable travel trailer. I hook it up to our pickup truck most weekends and, head on out Saturday afternoon and head to the beach or head to the mountains and just try as best I can to turn the phone off.
Yeah.
Then there's other times where you just pack it up and go to work the next day.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice would you have for your younger self? So for young teaching pros, what advice would you go back and tell yourself?
I think do a much better job of finding mentors. I think I could have done better. I had a couple of good ones, but I think that, and maybe it's because of social media and the access we all have to, people around the world now, which when I came to the US, we really didn't have. I think it's easier to get to know a high profile person and know that they will talk to you. Where back then it was kind of like just the people in your community ended up being your mentors unless you traveled a lot. So, I'd certainly go back and make myself work a little harder to find that person.
Do you think it's important to have that right fit with the mentor as well?
Oh, for absolute sure. And that you can't build that. I think that's just something that either happens or doesn't. It's a personality thing, no different to some students work with a certain pro and the same student might hate another pro just because the personalities don't click. And that can happen with mentors and mentees as well. So, but from the mentor standpoint, I think it comes back to management styles and what does the mentee want to learn and how do they want to learn. And so a lot of that can come from the mentor as well.
Yeah, and what their specific goals are. That's right. For sure. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So finally, I'll finish by throwing your question back at you. Why not? If you were in charge of tennis, you were in charge of our industry. How do you feel about? We have seen a rise in the backyard pro. Certainly down at the courts near where I am, there's a basket of balls, and every third person is a tennis pro. But are they? What are your thoughts on professional development and the future and whether people should get certified or just start coaching? What's your advice on that?
Yeah, and I've been a tester for both organizations through the years, and I basically, if I go back 20 years, I considered one organization tested at a higher level than the other organization. But I love the testing level of I'll call it the lower level organization for the sake of the conversation, because I could go out and I could take all those backyard tennis pros and at least give them the fundamentals to where when they left after that weekend, I knew they knew what a grip was, and I knew they knew kinetic chains, and I knew, all the basics that tennis pros need to know. And I know they were going to teach anyway. And so that gave them a really good fundamental base. And then, a lot of the other, pros who were college players and did a lot of drills went the other organization, and they were probably fine because they didn't need the fundamentals. They had learned the fundamentals through playing. Now I think it's a little bit more of a competition of who can have the best continuing education program. I don't know, it's kind of muddied the waters some. I'm still a fan of both organizations, and I'm a huge fan of, being certified. I'm certified in pickleball. I'm going to be certified soon in platform tennis. I don't know that I have a reason to get certified in padel, but I may do it just because. So I'm a big fan of what that brings and the credibility it brings. So, hopefully everybody, I don't necessarily think anybody needs to join together, but I hope they all work together. So
I've
probably just been kicked out of all the organizations for that answer. But
no, I think I'm with you. I think collaborate and conquer. And I'm certainly one who's, I got out of tennis altogether for 12 months and and studied. I thought I was going to get into business coaching and studied everything to do with that. And it catapulted me back into tennis in a number of ways because I realized so much that I didn't know about personal development, human development, how do people learn and different behavioral styles. So I really found that, even when we study things outside of our own sport, I'm a course junkie, can I say. I'm always into it as well and always have been. I think it'll be a lifelong quest of certifications and knowledge and keep growing. And that's why we have the coaching podcast. I love that last question. What are you curious about, or what are you thinking deeply about? Because, the more we can talk about our own questions and where the future's heading, I think is for the betterment of the sport and the industry. Yeah. So thank you to you and your fabulous wife, also tennis coach. Yes. And we wish you every success in the future. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Emma.
The Coaching Podcast was brought to you by Emma Doyle and Simon Blair.